This podcast contains mature content and listener discretion is advised.
Also, be advised, we are not medical professionals and this podcast is for entertainment purposes only.
Running through the streets, solving all the mysteries, crushes and aliens, lots of other crazy things, laughing all the way. All we know is we don't know Kayla and Maggie, breaking down conspiracies, learning all the way, searching through time and space. Kayla and Maggie, now that's done, let's crack the beer and
Welcome to Mystery Team Inc.
I brought performance-enhancing drugs. Kick
A
me
little
out of the
caffeine.
Olympics.
Okay.
And a little bit of
My water is-
sweetener with like a little bit of aspartame.
All right, we are rolling. Good to go.
Thank you.
One time for the science fair.
Are you going to open that before we record?
No,
or?
I'm gonna
Okay,
quack it.
okay.
One time for the science fair, I did.
You better leave this in, whatever this is going to be.
I did an experiment where we put real human teeth in soda.
Yeah, I remember that. Didn't you
And
win?
it was, I think we won second place,
Oh,
which is
okay.
really disappointing. We watched real teeth
Dissolve.
dissolve
In
It
Coke,
was
right?
So gross.
Yeah.
It was really gross. I think we put it in
Where
like,
did you get the human teeth?
don't ask questions you don't want to. No, my partner's dad is a dentist.
Oh, he just keeps those and then gives them out?
To us, I think he like started collecting wisdom teeth.
If
Or,
my
like,
dentist
teeth that
pulls
were
my teeth
extracted.
out, I don't want them to like give my DNA to strangers.
I bet it would. He asked.
If they would donate their teeth to science.
Yes, to fourth grade science. Would you like to donate? I would.
To fourth grade science.
Yeah, anything
Not to
above or
government
below.
science.
No. All right, are you ready?
Yes.
And we're in.
We're in. Welcome to Mystery Team Inc. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Maggie. I wanted to try to say the same thing, but I couldn't think of something to say.
I'm Maggie.
For now.
Before the government gets a hold of my teeth, and then who knows?
I would never let them take your teeth. That's my guarantee. If you go
That's our
first.
guarantee. That's the Mystery Team Inc. guarantee. The government will never get your teeth on our watch. And when we're president, we'll sign it into law.
But just for our listeners.
Yeah.
Just for our...
The guarantee doesn't extend to people that aren't part of the exchange.
It's
The
true.
exchange is you listen to the podcast, we protect your teeth from the government.
You know what, though? Maybe that should be on our Patreon.
Oh, that's behind a paywall.
Yes.
Like you can upgrade your Patreon subscription for like with teeth protection. It's like when you buy like an
you buy-
electronic in big quote air quotes where it's like you buy like a drive or like headphones off of Amazon and it's like, did you want to add
A warranty?
tech protection
And it's
for
like-
a 1 year for $29.99
For your
the price of the
$19
thing you buy?
headphones. I have never, even when I order furniture, I'm like, pass.
Yeah, me too.
No, thank you.
We're like, for an extra $1 a month, we will physically fight the government if they try to take your teeth.
I would. No, but we know people who could do it.
Yeah.
I know a lot of
We'd have to
strong
contract
people.
that out.
I think they'd do it for free for me.
Yeah. I'm just saying we are not very strong.
No. We would have to hire
Mentally
independent
or physically. That's what I'm
contractors.
saying. It's a
They're
third party.
They're all S Corps too.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how the payment would work. I guess that's their problem. Anyway, welcome to the podcast.
The podcast where we protect your teeth from the
Mhm.
government.
We're already on one. As I said before we started, I did bring performance enhancing substances, which is my DC.
Diet Coke.
Thank you for translating. So I'm gonna. I
Quack
haven't done
it?
this in so long.
You gonna quack it?
Psh, just kidding. Mm. Great. I feel much better. And I'm probably not going to touch it for the rest of the episode.
Great.
Okay. Do we have any business?
Don't think so. We already plugged the Patreon.
Yeah, we plugged the Patreon. I don't have anything.
Me neither.
Okay, great. Are you ready?
Mhm.
You know what I should say? Are you ready for a mystery?
Yes.
Okay. It's like kind of a mystery. So the story I have for you today is the story of the Galapagos affair, aka Satan Came to Eden.
Love it.
Mhm. My main source is a book called The Galapagos Affair by John Traherne.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good book.
Great.
The end. He kind of compiled, there's a lot of primary sources in this story, and he like read all the primary sources and compiled them. And then I read the book and I was like, I should probably go to the primary sources. And then I did, and I was like, he did all the work for me. So thanks, John. So our story begins with an unhappy housewife in Germany named Dora Kerwin. When she was 23, Dora had married a 45-year-old teacher. She got a job at a bank and she was making good money, but she was planning to quit and become a stay-at-home mom.
I hope the bank was paying her good money because they have all the money.
They have it there. Then she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and once she was released from the hospital, she had like a come to Jesus moment and realized that she didn't want to be a housewife, so she went back to school to be a teacher. She got treatment from the Hydrotherapeutic Institute in Berlin, and one day when she was there for treatment, she noticed a young doctor doing rounds. This young doctor was named Friedrich Ritter. Friedrich Ritter was born in 1886 in the Black Forest in Germany. According to the Galapagos affair, he was, quote, a snuffling, headachy boy subjected to the discipline of a particularly brutal schoolmaster. He was a big reader. He was particularly fond of Robinson Crusoe. At 20 years old, to his parents' displeasure, he married a woman named Mila Clark, who was studying to become a singer. And he was like super into ambitious women. And he was like really supportive of her career. He volunteered for World War I and served in the trenches. After the war, he completed his medical studies in Freiburg. And then he and Mila moved to Berlin. Despite their relationship having badly deteriorated, she had decided she wanted to quit singing and become a housewife. And he was like, I don't respect that.
Did they like Gift of the Magi this where, what's her name? Dora? What did you say her name was?
Mila?
No, the first woman.
Dora.
Dora was like, I don't want to be a housewife. I want to be a teacher. And Mila was like, I don't want to be a singer. I want to be a housewife. And they were like, what if we swap places and your husband will never know?
Oh, you were close.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So,
Also, what do these people look like?
not
Headachy,
great.
headachy boy.
I mean, do you want to see a
Diva.
picture of them?
Singing diva. I just feel like it helps me remember who's who when I like kind of know what they
Mila
look like.
won't come back,
Okay, great.
if that helps. Well, okay, let me tell more of the story and then I'll show you a
Okay.
picture. Because I don't want to spoil what happens. So, Friedrich found a position at the Hydrotherapeutic Institute at the University of Berlin, and that is where he met Dora. He used to come to her bedside and just like talk at her, what I assume was talking at her. He went every day, and he was really into philosophy, particularly Nietzsche, and he told her that she could think her way out of her MS.
Mm-hmm.
And the book says, he became her confessor as well, for Dora told him everything without reserve. In particular, she told him about her marriage, which was in very bad shape. So Dora was discharged after 2 weeks, and Friedrich convinced her to let him be her personal physician.
This is so creepy.
So Dora became his patient, and
Like,
John-
why? If you work at this institute, you have plenty of patients. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm Dora, I'm like seeing through that.
Oh, she will not see through a single thing this man does, unfortunately. So she became his patient, and the book describes her also as his disciple.
Nope.
Yep. She went to
Don't
see
like
him.
that.
No, it's not good. So she went to see him every day, and they would like go onto the roof of his practice, and he would talk at her. A lot of it was like reading her. Thus spoke Zarathustra. I don't know how to say
what
it.
that is.
It's a Nietzsche book that introduces the idea of the Übermensch and the will of power, and like it's not
Sure.
worth your time.
Yeah.
And he told her about what the book calls his strange dreams of journeying into the wilderness to realize his great ideal of solitude, which he had meticulously planned out in a little black notebook.
Mm-hmm.
Friedrich's plan was move to the Galapagos.
Go for it, bro. I'm not going with you.
No.
You're going by yourself
I
for
would
your
never.
solitude. For your great trip of solitude.
He's a real treat. So he read a book by William Beebe. It was a 1924 book called Galapagos World End, which apparently described the Harrison Williams Galapagos expedition of 1923. I couldn't find anything except for like a couple academic papers that were behind paywalls about this. But in John's book, he says they spent less than 100 hours ashore and they stayed on a steamboat.
Mm-hmm.
Then I wrote, this book is 442 pages long, so I will not be reading it, and I will be taking John at his word that this is true. Galapagos World End is 442 pages.
Okay.
So Dora and Friedrich spent 2 years planning their escape, with Dora continuing to play housewife to her husband while sneaking away to meet on Friedrich's roof every day.
Oh, no.
At one point, her husband was like, I don't like this. Stop seeing him. And she was like, no.
Yeah.
And then he was like, okay.
Great.
Apparently, as Dora spent more time with Friedrich, her health began to improve.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's true, but a lot of the information about her health improving is from her book about
Sure.
Friedrich. So it's like,
As someone who has a lot of health issues because of my mental health, I can say there's a strong possibility that she felt like shit when she was really unhappy, and then she got really excited about this random dude and probably felt a little better and was like, wow, I'm healed.
yeah. But it did not heal her MS.
Of course not.
Yeah.
She still had MS.
She still had MS. So,
But she was probably like, wow, I feel way better.
yeah,
And was like, I'm healed. My health has improved.
that's okay. That's fair. But it just makes me need to stretch my neck a little bit. So, they decided that to minimize like the damage of their escape, they would set their spouses up together, and it worked. Like they were like, "Hey, why don't you guys just move in with each other?" And
No.
her husband was like, "Yeah, okay."
Move in with each other.
Yeah, they moved in together.
Not like go hang out.
No, they
while
moved
we hang
in
out?
together.
No.
So, okay. So
Absolutely not.
by the end of June 1921, Friedrich officially gave up his practice in Berlin. They moved Mila in with Dora's husband, which Dora said, quote, passed off with less tension than she feared. But I wrote, but who knows what actually happened, because Dora was so delusional, it's unlikely she had anywhere near an objective read on the situation.
Yeah.
The night before they left,
Her husband was probably like, I'm leaving you. And she was probably like, this has gone so much better than I expected. And just like flounced out of the room.
you're about to be correct. So the night before they left, Dora threw a dinner party so that her husband's friends and family could meet Mila.
No.
But she didn't say anything about the fact that she was leaving. But as they said goodbye that night, her husband made her promise that she would never, ever come back to him.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So the next morning they left Berlin and they sailed from Amsterdam on July 3rd, 1929.
Do you know how much you have to talk about this weird man and Nietzsche for your spouse to say, you can go, but never come back?
I can't imagine how unbelievably insufferable those two people
Yeah.
are. So They had to wait in Guayaquil, Ecuador for the month of August because the only boat that took people to the Galapagos wouldn't return until August 29th. On August 31st, they boarded the Manuel y Cobos, a schooner captained by A1 Captain Brune.
Mm-hmm.
They landed on September 19th at what is called Post Office Bay on the island of Floreana.
Mm-hmm.
So named because there is a barrel on a pole on the shore of the bay at the north end of the island, put there in the late 18th century, that functions as a post office.
Great.
They spent their first night in some buildings near Post Office Bay that had been abandoned by some Norwegians in 1925 who went to Floreana expecting to be able to make money hunting and fishing, and every single one of them gave up within the year and left. The next day, Dora and Friedrich set off with Hugo, a 14-year-old boy who was an employee of Captain Brune's, who was on the island hunting when they got there and just like offered to stay and help them get set up. They took 3 days' supplies, a gun, and Hugo's dogs, and they set off to explore the island. The island is like the first level of the island is all sharp lava fields.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you get higher, it becomes tropical.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't know that when they got there because they only had the information from that book.
Right.
So they thought it was going to be a tropical paradise, and it was like the sharpest thing they've ever seen.
It was their own fire festival.
They fire festivaled themselves.
They were like, it's going to be beautiful.
There's gonna
Blink 182 is going to be there.
Influencers.
And then they got there and they were like, these are really sharp rocks.
And we are the influencers.
And the influencer is a 14-year-old boy named Hugo who just runs around the island for some reason. Where are his parents?
If it makes you interested at all, there will be an influencer in this story.
Yes, I think I vaguely remember this from the documentary.
So the lava fields totally destroyed their shoes. This was an issue for them the entire time that they lived
Their
there.
shoes. No.
They ended my baby kitten heels.
I wear little brown baby kitten heels.
They ended up finding some caves that may or may not have been made by humans, but were definitely at least remodeled by humans.
Okay.
The biggest one was 20 feet deep and 15 feet wide, and it had ledges carved into the sides that were like bunks.
Cool.
Presumably carved by pirates in the 18th century. That's a whole other story.
Cool.
So they spent the night in the cave, and the next morning they continued exploring, and they came upon an extinct volcanic crater that formed what the book calls a natural basin full of luxuriant tropical vegetation with a clear spring in the middle. And it even had an ocean view of another bay that they call Black Beach Bay, which is on the western side of the island. And they decided it was the perfect spot for their new Eden. Friedrich named it Frido, a combination of their names, which I feel like could have been workshopped.
This is what happens when no one tells you no. This is what happens when you're the guy who just talks at your girlfriend, mistress.
The saddest part is that
Because I know Dora could have come up with something better than that.
I bet she did. And he was like, no.
Yeah.
So they spent the next few weeks lugging all of their shit from Post Office Bay across the island over the lava fields to Frido. And it was just the two of them and Hugo and one very old horse.
No.
And Dora eventually convinced them to like let the horse go.
Mhm.
And they found it dead the next day.
Yeah, why would you let the horse go?
Because
In the lava fields?
She didn't know.
Where is it going to eat? Like, what's it going to eat?
No, there's like
It's only ever been
there's animals
raised by
living.
people.
There's a lot of wild animals on that island.
Yeah, but the horse
Maybe.
was domestic. The horse
Maybe.
expected people to feed it. It didn't know what. Also, horses need grassland to graze.
I
That's
think
what wild
there
horses
was-
eat.
Probably grassland.
There were lava fields and a tropical jungle, is what you're describing to me.
I want to believe this horse.
You think it was
was
the horse's
okay.
fault?
No, I want to believe it was okay.
You said they found it dead the next day.
I know, but I wanted it to be free for those 24 hours. But it was just sad.
This is like dropping a beta in the ocean and being like, be free. Like, it's not gonna be okay.
That's
It
so
needs like a
sad.
shallow enclave. That's where they live. And it needs a
Fish
teenager
flakes.
feeding it fish flakes.
It needs to be won at a school fair.
Yes. That
So
poor horse.
I know. For weeks, they had it going over the lava fields.
Horrible.
It was so old. So Dora was often in so much pain that she would like collapse,
Yeah.
begging for help, and he would just leave her. Friedrich would just leave her on the ground.
That's what they did to the horse.
Yeah.
He needed it to her.
She saw herself in the horse.
Yeah.
And she was like, be free,
free.
before this
Yeah,
happens to you. And then
exactly.
she fucked the horse. I mean, no.
Whoa.
Fucked over the horse.
That took a turn.
Oh, sorry. I'm not John Oliver over here. So, by early October, things began to improve only in that
I knew there was a caveat to that sentence.
only in that they were mostly moved in. All of the
So
plants,
things had already improved.
Yes.
Nothing was improving.
No. They brought with them like an incredible amount of supplies for people who were going to go rough it in the Galapagos. Like a lot of seeds and starts like that you can get from Leaf in Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
And a lot of tools. And so they planted all the seeds and shoots. They had a little makeshift garden. They got a horse from some Norwegian people who came to the island, who also promised to bring building materials the next time they came to the island. However, Dora was still being abused by Friedrich. She wrote, "The little tenderness, all the spontaneous expressions of love, so trifling when enumerated and yet so indispensable, had disappeared entirely from his behavior towards me. He had become impersonal, almost cold. He seemed impatient of even the slightest demonstrativeness on my part, and so I, too, suppressed my warm, affectionate impulses, though not easy." And then she was like, "I'm leaving." And then she was like, "I'm just kidding, I'm not leaving."
Because she can't leave.
She can't leave for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
Partly because she's in a cult.
Yeah.
Partly because she didn't have any money.
Yeah.
They did have money, but he was withholding it from
Of
her.
course. Also, she have to go across the lava fields.
Her feet were destroyed.
She literally has a degenerative disease that is killing her.
She really does.
She's like not actually like probably able to do what she would need to do to like escape from this man in the night.
No, she couldn't.
She is like physically and mentally a prisoner.
Yeah, she's a prisoner.
And I'm not calling it Frito.
What do you want? Do you want to come up
If
with
I
a
was
new
her,
name?
that would have been my hill that I would die on. That was me personally speaking, but also speaking for her, I would be like, and I'm not, and another fucking thing.
And
I'm not calling it Frito.
I'm calling it Dorich.
Yeah, this
okay.
is horrible.
So then one day, Hugo was charged by a bull on a hunting trip and he was gored through the armpit and he was like, "All right, I'm done." And he left the next time Captain Bruins came to the island.
He left the island and he left her there.
Yeah. He was
This,
14.
Hugo.
Hugo.
Oh, I thought you said Friedrich.
No.
I was like, this motherfucker.
Can you imagine?
No.
No, because his ego is such that he needs a follower.
I know.
Even though he is.
Poor Hugo.
I know.
He got bonked.
He got a big bong.
Yeah.
So Dora and Friedrich started to receive help and supplies from people visiting the island. The Norwegians came back with 36 sheets of corrugated iron, which Friedrich used to make the roof of their house. And then the owner of a yacht gave them a wheelbarrow, a rifle, and some dynamite. And they grew... This is a list that I took straight from the book because I couldn't think of a better way to write a list of vegetables.
Carrots and spinach
Oh
and
my God.
lettuce
I
and
thought
parsley.
you were gonna- Okay, I was writing this list and I was like, she's going to go greens, and nothing but greens.
Oh, see, I went, you're a good man, Charlie Brown.
I
but I should
know.
have gone into the woods.
Well, you took me by surprise.
Parsley, peppers, cabbages and celery, asparagus and watercress and fiddle ferns and lettuce.
Yeah, it was beans, tomatoes, peas, cabbages, radishes, cauliflower, onions, celery, spinach, papayas, oranges, coconuts, guavas, lemons, pineapples, yams, and sugarcane, which
It's a
is
good
like,
list.
it's a great list. They can make anything they want with that. Friedrich engaged in some really strange behavior. One of the things he did
Like
was
moving to the Galapagos
moving
with nothing but some tools and some shoots and starts
and a disciple.
and one disciple.
He formed a rivalry with a wild boar. That was like so intense that there are chapters dedicated to it in this book.
Okay.
He also had this weird
Well, every
thing.
cult needs an antagonist.
We are being targeted by the boar.
They're trying to silence our message.
So he also had this thing with his teeth where he did not enter into a pact between a Patreon and its listeners.
He should have listened to this podcast. We would have protected them.
He did this thing where, this is from the book, he wrote, he practiced a system of eating that required what Dora called intensive mastication of each mouthful
No.
to the point where he ground his teeth to nubs. So before they left,
He was just over chewing.
he was just over chewing. Ugh. So before they left, he had them removed.
Wait, that was before he left?
Before he left,
Just in
He
regular
got his
society? He
teeth
was chewing
removed,
so hard?
like in anticipation. So he ground his teeth to nubs while he was just living in normal society.
Mm.
And then he had his teeth removed in anticipation of leaving because he wanted to see if gums could be toughened to the point of substituting for teeth.
You know where's not a good place to test that hypothesis?
On a remote
On
island.
a remote island in the Galapagos where you have to grow all your own food.
Yeah,
And you can't have like anything processed.
if it helps. He brought stainless steel dentures.
It doesn't help. It doesn't.
It doesn't help. So Dora...
Did he donate his teeth to fourth grade science, do you think?
No, because they were nubs.
You could have put nubs in Diet Coke.
You're
and
absolutely
seen-
correct. I could have. They didn't need to be fully formed teeth. They could have been pieces, or we could have done it with fake teeth. Or like pieces of bone. Remember when you used to go, nope,
No,
I don't think this is a thing that you did.
don't think.
Here's what I was going to say. Remember when you used to go out to the desert with your brother to shoot off toy rockets and then you would find bones in the desert?
Nope.
None of that is a thing that anybody else did. But my brain went, I could have just used those bones.
Sure.
It's weird to find out
No,
things
you were
aren't
right.
universal.
You were right to steal teeth from the dentist.
It was sound science.
Yeah.
It was a good
You were
scientific
right.
practice. I was right. They were given to us. We didn't steal them.
They were ethical. Maybe.
Ethically sourced teeth. That's
Band
like
name?
I had to. I was designing a demon for Josh for one of his films recently. And I was like,
Where am I going to get more teeth?
I was like, hear me out. What if we covered them in teeth?
yeah.
And he, because he loves me, was like, yeah, cover them in teeth.
Yeah.
You know where you can get fake teeth? Temu. They have
Teeth
so many teeth on there, and they're not that expensive.
When they show up, are they a regular size?
yes.
Like, is it like Wish when you order something big and it's small, or vice versa?
no, they're real teeth size. They're like,
They might be real teeth. They're probably cheaper to come by than fake teeth.
you just go shoot off rockets with your brother and
In
you
the
find the teeth,
desert,
and then you
yeah.
sell them on Temu.
Yeah. Madeline and I have a joke. It's become so like morphed over time. It started because she got a writing prompt in a writing class where there had to be teeth in it. And she was writing a horror short, so there were teeth. And then she became a horror writer. So whenever she like needed an idea or a pitch, she would go, "Oh, I know, teeth," because teeth are just horrifying. But now all the time, whenever teeth come up or whenever we need an idea, one of us just goes, "Oh, I know, teeth."
I can hear her saying that.
Yeah.
I hear it in my head.
Yeah.
Teeth is always the answer.
Apparently.
I have so many teeth in my house now.
Yeah.
And I just moved and my mother was in there and I had a box of teeth and she was like, and I was like, I'm keeping the teeth.
Yeah. The
And
teeth
now I
stay.
have the teeth stay. So now I have a box of teeth
It's
in my
me
house.
or the teeth.
She would be like, maybe the teeth.
She'd be
Okay.
like, you throw the teeth away.
And Josh would be like, maybe the teeth. Hold on. I paid for those.
Yeah.
So
They're
Dora,
a write-off.
those teeth. Kayla is not a write-off.
Those teeth are a write-off. You can't throw them away. Save your receipts.
Save your teeth. That was a sip. Congratulating myself on that portmanteau. Does it count as a portmanteau if it's just 2 words?
That
What
is
is
what a
that?
portmanteau is.
Portmanteau is not.
It's 2 words to put together.
It's not a combination of sentences.
No.
I'm thinking of something else.
Yeah.
So
A spoonerism or something.
yes,
No, spoonerism is where you switch the
a
letters.
malapropism.
A malapropism.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dora
Who?
says. Okay, our story begins with an unhappy housewife.
So what?
So Dora looks back at February through April as the happiest time for them on Floreana.
Oh, I thought she was going
Um,
to say in her life. And I was like, no.
No. I wrote, I guess their relationship had improved, but it's a pretty low bar with Friedrich. Then one day, mail arrived. It had been arriving, but this mail was important because
Mhm.
they found out that their story had become like sensationalized in Germany.
Mhm.
Also at this time,
They printed it in like a newspaper or something.
yeah,
Right?
yeah. They didn't, but like the story
Someone
got
did,
out because
yeah.
the people were going to the island.
Yeah.
Um,
Hugo wrote a tell-all.
I would read that. So then one day, Captain Bruns was like, I also want to live on Floreana. So he refurbished the Norwegian houses at Post Office Bay and he built a little fishing operation with employees and a new business
Ooh,
partner
The horse?
with
is
just
there?
one old horse
No. Who is there? Is it the Norwegians that are like coming to visit?
right now.
Who is his employee?
I
Is
think
it Dora in a hat and a Mr. Manager name tag?
No,
Like-
he like brought people, probably from Ecuador.
Oh, to work at his...
Fishing operation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do they live there with them?
Yeah, in the little Norwegian houses.
In Frito?
No,
Oh.
on the island.
Okay.
The
In
Norwegian
Post
houses
Office
are at
Bay.
Post Office Bay, yeah. No one goes to Frito.
I don't like
It
that
sucks
more
there.
innocents are getting sucked into this.
It's okay. They won't be there long. Not in a dark way. Well, kind of in a dark way. So he brought also a new business partner who is a Danish man named...
Good luck. May the odds be ever in your favor.
It looks like nude errands.
Okay, great.
Which I think is funny. But okay, we're going to call him Ahrens. Arends. Who Dora said was very handsome. Then one day, Captain Bruns left the island with 8 of his employees and the governor of the Galapagos who had been there and an English doctor who had also been there. They were all hanging out there. And they went to the island, Isabella, to buy food and salt. There is a complicated story of lots of people going in lots of different directions, but it ends with Captain Bruns dying because they ran out of fuel on the way back to Floreana. He took a motorboat to go get more fuel, ended up getting caught in a storm, and then dashed on some lava rocks in St. Pedro's Bay. Ahrens was on Guayaquil that whole time. And when he returned to Post Office Bay, he found Captain Bruns missing and he took their other motorboat. He also capsized in that same bay and he washed ashore up next to his friend's grave.
No.
Yeah.
He
So
also died.
no,
Oh, he just washed up and found
he
him.
just washed up and like was next to
Got
it.
it.
Or that was someone being dramatic when they told that story.
Okay.
He found the grave though. And then he ended up moving in with a Danish family in Academy Bay on the island of Santa Cruz. Around this time, people started to arrive at the island specifically to see Friedrich and Dora because their story had been like leaked by the press. They were pestered by journalists to the point that they finally agreed to write magazine articles about their lives on the island to keep people away. And because they didn't want the story getting sensationalized, like they were really worried about that. Couldn't tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
In the fall of 1931, they began construction on a real house at Frito. Friedrich continued to be a complete asshole to Dora. There was a an incident that John writes about where Dora really wanted a flower garden because she was homesick, but Friedrich wouldn't give her the money to order seeds. But then an American,
him.
he sucks. Then it's going to get worse. An American visitor gave her some carnation seeds, which she planted in their garden. And then she got sick for a few days. And while she was sick, she asked Friedrich to please water the carnations.
No, I hate him.
And then when she was well enough to go outside again, she found that he had ripped up the plants. So she replanted them and he destroyed them again. And then the third time she planted them, Friedrich sat her down and lectured her about frivolity, which is worse than destroying the plants.
Yeah.
She then reflected on this in her book and said that Friedrich was, quote, trying to free her from the domination of fleeting wishes and irrational desires. Cult.
Like teeth?
Like teeth.
This man, I'm sorry, Dora. This man
He nubbed
is
his
not
teeth.
one to lecture you about fleeting wishes and irrational desires. You moved to the Galapagos. What are you talking about?
They did plan it for 2 years.
Yeah.
So-
It doesn't make it less irrational.
That's true.
It's still the most irrational thing I've ever heard.
Hear me out. Just kidding. So, on August 23rd, 1932, drawn by the articles about Dora and Friedrich and by William Beebe's Galapagos World's End, some new neighbors arrived, the Whitmers. We have Heinz Whitmer, his pregnant wife, Margaret, and his son, Harry, from a former marriage, who was in poor health and had bad eyes, and their dogs, Lump and Hertha. And so Heinz served as a lieutenant in the Army Reserve before the First World War, and then he served in the trenches in World War I. After the war, he was unemployed. He lost all of his savings, and after reading William Beebe's book and the articles that Friedrich and Dora were publishing, he and Margaret decided to escape to what they thought would be Eden. They also thought it would be good for Harry's health to be like out of the hustle and bustle of society and on a lava rock. They planned their escape in secret for 2 years. They sailed from Amsterdam in July without telling anyone. They just left behind notes. They also brought a lot of stuff, including Quaker Oats, brandy, soap, a rifle, and a typewriter. Typewriter's not that weird. I don't know why I said it like that.
And curiously,
food. So
you have to make it more mysterious. It's very mysterious. You have to make the story feel mysterious. You have to be like,
they brought food
and suspiciously, food.
So Dora and Friedrich's reception of the Whitmers was decidedly cold. And Margaret wrote in her book, she has a book too, that she wasn't really impressed by the inhabitants of Frito either.
The drama.
Drama. She was like, they were dirty and he didn't have any teeth.
And she was real for that.
She was correct. The only good thing that came of their first meeting was that Friedrich told the Whitmers about the caves. So they spent the next week moving their stuff up to the caves, and then the next few weeks planting seeds and getting
Friedrich ripping their flowers out.
Apparently, Margaret didn't go back to Frito for 18 months
Oh God.
because she did not like them.
Yeah.
On September 16th, they celebrated Harry's 13th birthday and began construction on their house, which became a log cabin. And then either mid-October or November in 1932, accounts vary, Heinz arrived at Frito with Dora and Friedrich's mail, which had been opened, and then not by him.
I wonder by who. There's like one other person on the island.
I'll tell you by who. And the news that a new party arrived and established themselves at the Norwegian buildings at Post Office Bay. The party consisted of a bunch of men and one woman, a German baroness, who was the one who had opened their mail. The most attentive of these men was a man named Rudolf Lorenz, and he seemed to be the baroness's favorite. The book says, insofar as she enjoyed a power over him fueled by his infatuation of her. The other two were a German man with dark curly hair named Robert Philipson and a large Ecuadorian man named Felipe Valdivieso. She arrived at Frito riding on a donkey, wearing sunglasses, overalls, and a beret,
Mhm.
and carrying a copy of the picture of Dorian Gray, without which she would never be seen, with her men walking beside her.
She's like quite literally the trope of like the Ginger from Gilligan's Island. She's like the superstar who like shows up on her mule with like her hair done and like her mascara on and like her beret slightly jauntily askew.
It was 100 it was definitely jauntily
and her
askew.
copy of a picture of Dorian Gray under
So
her.
annoying. And I think I read somewhere that she was wearing a red lip.
Of course she was.
Of course she was.
Being like, point me to the cabanas. But she was German, so.
I can't do a German accent, so I'm not
neither.
going to try. Don't be sad about that. That's okay. So, okay, this is an excerpt from the book. One of the male retinue helped the Baroness to dismount and, without permission, placed one of Ritter's deck chairs for her. When seated, she held...
literally had the deck chairs out. You know what I'm saying? She was like, where's the cabana? At least she had the foresight to bring her own deck chairs.
No, it was Friedrich's deck chair. He like moved it. When seated, she held her hand to Dora as though expecting it to be kissed. Dora noticed annoyance flash across her face when she merely took the proffered hand. So she also had been drawn by the romanticized accounts of Dora and Friedrich's life.
This is the danger about blogging, you guys. If you thought you were going to be safe, keeping people away,
The
just
danger of
blogging about your
blogging.
adventures, you accidentally became an influencer. And now everybody wants to live on the Galapagos with you.
Oh, the best is that Friedrich and Dora didn't want to be influencers. And then the Baroness absolutely does want to be an influencer.
Yeah.
It's like how we became influencers. Purely by accident, trying to be alone.
Yeah.
Um,
We tried so hard to be alone that we started creating art in a non-visual medium specifically so we wouldn't have to be perceived. And then we somehow became UGC creators.
oh God. Our faces everywhere.
Mhm.
Now we're filming. Oh, if you're just listening to this.
If you're just tuning in an hour into the episode,
this will be on YouTube as well. So
This
if you
will be
want to
on
see
YouTube
our
as
cute
well.
faces and our basic teas.
go somewhere else because
Should we dress up for this?
it's a little late.
I'm just wondering, like, maybe for the rest of the season. Or have we already established?
How do we know what like literal season it is when this airs though? We're going to have to wear like Christmas sweaters or something.
I think unless it's like a holiday specific episode,
Yeah.
we just go for like a 7 out of 10 on the cute scale.
Okay.
Outfit wise, our faces are 10s. I
But
don't think we need to
I
worry
feel like
about
my
that.
outfits are so seasonal. Like I intentionally wore this shirt today because I was like, if this premieres in November, this is like a fall winter shirt as opposed to like a
That's so
summer
fair.
overall.
You know what? I did that too. I was going to wear this really cute lace tie front vest thing, and I
Yeah.
was like, that's really summery,
Yeah.
Kayla. Okay, so we are doing it. No notes. The Baroness immediately
They did not.
The Baroness immediately began to cause trouble. The day she was
Cause
given
trouble. Baby, I am trouble.
God. She definitely said that. The day that she was given the tour of Friedo, Dora and Friedrich had to offer to let her spend the night because she was there after dark. And she had Lorenz wash her feet in their drinking water. And there was also a whole thing about some rice where the Whitmers had bought a bag of rice from the captain of a boat. The captain of the boat that took the Baroness over, and they bought it for 11 sukers. And then the Baroness was like, I will watch your rice at the bay until you can come pick it up. So, like, don't even worry about it. And then the next Sunday, Heinz went down to pick up the rice, and the Baroness was, first of all, in a full riding getup
Mm-hmm.
with a revolver in her belt
Mm-hmm.
and a full face of makeup. She introduced Robert Phillipson as her husband
Mm-hmm.
and announced her plans to build a luxury hotel on Floreana called Hacienda Paradiso.
Mm-hmm.
And Heinz was like, that's all really cool.
Where's
Can I
my
have my rice? And she was like, yeah, you can have it for 28 sukras. And he was like, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Also, now you can't have any of my oranges. And the Baroness was like, or I have 3 giant men and a revolver, and I can have some of your oranges. And Heinz was like, fine. And also left the rice there.
I kind of love her, actually. She's kind of just what this story needed. I know.
She then
but this
moved
reminds-
into the
Go
orange
ahead.
grove.
Oh, okay.
That's all.
I was going to say it just reminds me of when my college roommate went home for the weekend and I was like, yeah, I'll watch your vodka. She came back and it was just like water.
Did she ask you to watch it?
No.
Or did you offer?
No, I offered.
You were like, I know you. This wasn't even on your radar, but just to be safe.
I watched your vodka.
Would she have noticed? Well, it was water.
Have you never heard this story?
I think I heard it a long time ago.
Oh, it's a great story. There's a lot of stuff that happens in the middle, but the end
The
is
middle is the good part.
the end is that she yeah, it was vanilla vodka. So then when she drank it, she was like, is vanilla vodka supposed to taste like water?
And you were like, yeah.
And I was like, yeah, it's just a marketing scam.
That's brutal.
Yeah. I bought her a new bottle.
That's nice.
Yeah.
But also funny.
Yeah.
She also, not your roommate, the Baroness.
My roommate was really nice. She did not deserve to have her vanilla vodka stolen.
That's really sad.
I did replace it.
With vanilla?
Yeah, I'm not a bad person.
You couldn't just go get, I mean, I would have been like, let me get you a different flavor.
No, she wanted the vanilla.
Yuck. Flavored vodkas.
I mean, I would never drink it now.
Did you ever try the whipped cream one?
Yeah. The Pinnacle is the brand.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It
was
might
like
have
a
been
red, white, and
Kirkland.
blue bottle.
Yes, it was.
You're
Yeah.
thinking of Pinnacle whipped cream vodka. Horrible.
Horrible.
I don't even drink anymore.
Disgusting. So she also, the Baroness.
Cut all that out.
Maybe. The Baroness also beat up a Norwegian guy for hunting some calves that she had decided were hers. They weren't.
But he shouldn't have been hunting those calves.
No.
So
But
she was right.
no, she
But
was
not for
wrong.
but for the wrong
She
reasons.
was- I think she was like, I should be allowed to hunt them because they're mine.
Oh, never mind.
There's a lot of hunting going on this island, and I'm
Mhm.
sorry for that for you.
Mhm.
Around
it.
the time of that incident, an Ecuadorian newspaper called El Telegrafo published an article
The
about
Telegraph.
the Baroness. Yeah. Published an article about the Baroness announcing her plans to turn Floreana into what she described as something like Miami.
Mhm.
Um,
Except Miami is attached to more land.
correct. I don't think that's the part that she's worried about.
I'm just saying that helped Miami be
Oh, I was
be
like-
habitable.
I was like, I don't think she's going to connect it to anything.
No. I'm just saying some of these things are not like the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Miami is not nearly as sharp.
Right, exactly.
This made Friedrich so angry that he wrote a letter to the governor of the Galapagos saying, quote, it would be an ineradicable disgrace to the Ecuadorian government not to realize the crimes of which the woman is capable, who in her megalomania may take seriously her illusion that the whole island is her own property. Therefore, I ask you to take the proper measures to put this crazy woman under observation in a sanitarium.
I would like to take the first sentence of that and make it my bio on the internet.
It would be an ineradicable disgrace to the Ecuadorian government not to realize the crimes of which the woman is capable.
Yeah.
That's great.
Maybe just like generalize it a little bit, like make it not specific to Ecuador. But
It would be an ineradicable disgrace not to realize the crimes of which this woman is capable.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. No notes. Margaret gave birth to a son, Rolf, on January 2nd, 1933, after
Rolf.
3 days of intensely painful labor, which Friedrich reluctantly helped her with after 3 days.
Yeah.
Soon after Rolf was born.
No one brought her flowers, I bet.
Well, they did have a little like Christmas celebration and New Year's celebration where they all gave each other presents.
That feels frivolous and fleeting. And I think I don't want to have teeth.
And I'm not calling it
And I'm not calling it Frito.
Um,
That's nice that they did that.
yeah, it was like a cute ceasefire
Mhm.
where the Baroness even brought presents.
Mhm.
But then she sucked the whole time anyway.
Yeah.
Soon after Rolf was born, construction began on Hacienda Paradiso. The first things to come together were a large hut made of corrugated metal and a garden that Dora was like impressed with.
Okay.
The walls inside the hut were hung with decorative carpets. There was a fireplace, and the Baroness even had plans for a swimming pool, but everyone was like, yeah, okay. Friedrich and Dora were invited to lunch one day. And at this lunch, Dora noticed that the Baroness's silver had a 7-pointed star on it, which she knew indicated a countess and not a baroness. And she was like, this brand of silverware is mid.
Oh!
And she was like, maybe the Baroness is making all this shit up.
Damn.
Friedrich and Dora also started getting frequent visits from Lorenz, who came to Frito to complain about the way that he was being treated. And he also started to spill some tea about the Baroness.
Mm-hmm.
He said that the Baroness claimed to have been a spy in the war, and then after the war, she claimed to have become a dancer in Constantinople. She claimed to come from an illustrious Austrian family. She said she had been married to an airman in the war named Bosquet, and that her name was Eloise Baroness Wagner de Bosquet. But the details in her story often changed, and Lorenz said that he doubted a lot of it. According to him, they had met in Paris, and he had a shop selling, quote, overpriced knickknacks, which we absolutely love.
Yeah.
She became his business partner. He became infatuated with her and put her in charge of the books. She ran the business into the ground.
Yeah.
The Baroness's story is that she ran a successful dress shop, and Lorenz had worked for her.
Don't let the woman you love run the books. Don't let anyone you love run the books.
Don't
it's a
let
horrible
anyone
job.
run the books. No books. Another thing that the Baroness claimed is that she was able to perform miracles. She said that God had appeared to her in Paris and told her she had to go to Floreana and that there was no water there, but all she had to do was punch a rock. So she came to Floreana and she punched a rock and water started flowing out of it, and that's how Floreana got water. That's her story.
God says not to talk shit about me.
God told me to punch a rock, and that's how you can drink.
The only thing that would make me like her more is if she was a con artist of like the caliber where it's like she never had any money or a family. Like she came from the streets and she's now conned everyone into believing that she's a baroness and acquired a pistol and some red lipstick and is throwing deck chairs out on the, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, we don't know that that's not what happened.
yeah,
we can choose to believe that.
mm-hmm.
So Lorenz was at Frito complaining because he had fallen out of favor with the Baroness and had been replaced by Philipson as the favorite. The Baroness had put Lorenz to work to the point of exhaustion. She had Valdivieso, the other guy, watching him constantly to make sure he was doing what he was supposed to be doing. And if he wasn't doing what he was supposed to be doing, she would fly into a fury. Philipson just sat back and didn't have to do anything. Eventually, Lorenz was forbidden from visiting Frito. And on his last visit, for the time being, he was in such bad shape that Dora feared for his life.
No.
On January 26th, 1933, a ship called the Valero 3 landed at Post Office Bay carrying American millionaire Alan Hancock. It was his second expedition to the islands, but the first one was uneventful. They just met him. Friedrich and Dora were invited on board. They told Alan and his crew all about the Baroness and her resort. And he was like, I got to see this.
Mm-hmm.
On the way to Hacienda Paradiso, they ran into Lorenz, who was an absolute mess. One of his crewmen said, quote, his clothes were in rags. He was hatless and burned by the sun. Would we take him away? He wanted to leave so badly. And then he was like, you guys should see the new fence over at Hacienda
Oh my
Paradiso.
God.
So they arrived at Hacienda Paradiso to find it a complete mess, and the Baroness wearing only her underwear. According to another...
Slay.
I wonder what her underwear looked like, though.
It's the 30s.
Because it's the 30s. So it wasn't like... It was probably just like bloomers and a camisole.
It's probably like she probably had like a slip on and like a bra and underwear.
She probably looked really good.
That's what I'm saying. She's slay.
She slay!
She slay.
According to another traveler with Alan, they were told that, quote, the Baroness speaks 8 languages. She has lived in Vienna, Paris, and Constantinople. She has good connections in Hollywood. And also that Philipson was an engineer by trade.
This woman 100% is a con artist.
Yeah. And insane.
Yes.
Maybe not insane. Unhinged. Reckless.
Reckless, certainly. I almost feel like she's acting crazy because that's the character she's created. That's this like wealthy, entitled. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
it does
I think
make it
she
more
knows.
fun.
I think she knows. Like I think she's conscious of what she's doing.
She's just doing it for fun.
Well, I think she's doing it to make her character believable.
Yeah, that's fun. So that evening, Alan Hancock invited the Baroness and Philipson onto the Valero 3. During their visit, the Baroness told them that her great uncles were Franz Liszt and Robert and Richard Wagner, and one of them, the guys on the ship, played a piano solo from a Liszt piece, and she was like, that is exactly how he would have wanted it played.
Yeah, she made this up.
And she also told them that she had a great uncle who knew Sanskrit, and would they please bring her a Sanskrit textbook when they came back.
Sure.
And then when the ship left, Valdivieso left with them.
Good.
He was like, fine.
As he should.
A few days after the Valero 3 left, the Baroness went over to Frito, where she found Dora alone and was such a mean girl to her.
No.
Apparently, Alan Hancock had asked Dora to send some sugarcane down to Post Office Bay for the Baroness's half-starved donkeys. And the Baroness told him they were Dora's donkeys.
What?
Yeah. And then she was like, first of all, stop talking to Lorenz. Secondly, Alan Hancock told me that when he comes back, we're going to make a movie starring me
Yeah.
called The Empress of Floreana, and you don't get to be in it.
Yeah.
Then she told Dora she was the rightful ruler of the island because of her title. And Dora was like, I don't even think you're a baroness because your silver isn't even good. And it has 7 pointed stars. And then Dora pulled out her silver, which was like a nice brand, and was like, look at this. And then according to Dora, the Baroness launched into a diatribe on, quote, her antecedents, her childhood, her education, her experience at court where her mother had been a lady in waiting, her illustrious suitors. But in every other sentence, there was a contradiction, as if she forgot one lie before she had composed the next.
Yeah.
Philipson was in the throes of dire embarrassment, but she ignored the warning pushes of his foot against hers underneath the table, all easily visible to me. She was so wound up that only the exhausting of both breath and fantasy could stop her.
Oh my God.
The Baroness was also completely torturing the Whitmers at this time, and they lived closer to her. So
Yeah.
it was much easier for her
They're
to get
her
to them.
neighbor.
Yeah. It also
You don't
turned
want to
out
be a con artist neighbor.
no, absolutely not. Especially
You're
one
gonna get the
who's
brunt
like-
of the. You're gonna get. She's working out her new bits. You're gonna be the one.
She's like camping in their orange grove.
Yeah.
It also turned out that the Baroness had been asking visitors for supplies for the Whitmer's baby and then keeping
Taking
it.
them
Yeah.
for herself.
Yeah.
This is a con artist. This is a woman who has had to make do. You know what I mean?
I never thought you would put me on the Baroness's side. Also, Heinz Whitmer had a little boat that he kept at Black Beach Bay, and one day it disappeared, and he was like 100% sure the Baroness had it destroyed out of spite.
Oh, no.
But then he asked her about it, and she was like, actually, funny story. Some English guys took it, and then they sold it to a French guy in Panama, who then rowed it all the way back down to Chatham Island, which is an island in the Galapagos, and then he left it there. And Heinz and Friedrich were like so mad that they wrote to Ecuadorian authorities requesting a mental health eval
Yeah.
on the Baroness.
Because this sounds like a little kid being like, there was a man and he came and took it, and then there was a mouse and the mouse ran away, and then when the cat ran after the mouse, he knocked it over, and that's how it got broken. Like, you're like, we have Nest
100%.
cameras. I saw you knock it over. Like, what are you talking about?
We have Nest cameras.
She should have been like, Dora took it. She should have dragged it up to
Dora
Dora's
can't
house.
get out of her own house.
Oh, Dora.
Dora's so sick.
She should have been like, old Steel Breath took it. What were his teeth made out of? Steel.
Old steel mouth.
Were they stainless steel?
Yeah.
They weren't silver?
No, they were stainless steel.
Oh, yeah. Steel Breath. Good one.
Good old steel breath. Johnny Longlegs.
I forgot about Johnny Longlegs.
How dare. So, something important to note is that Margaret Whitmer wrote in her diary about this time that Friedrich was abusing Dora. Margaret said she had witnessed it a few times and that Dora had complained to her about it many times, but Dora always managed to explain it away and make excuses for Friedrich's behavior. John
That makes me so
says,
sad.
I know. John says that Dora looked at Friedrich as a god, basically. And they shared similar viewpoints, specifically about the subjugation of women to men. At one point, Dora told a visitor, if the woman disobeys, her man is justified in beating her. Women's most important duty in life is the reproduction of the species.
She actually doesn't believe that, though, because she sure didn't respect her fucking husband.
Fucking up and left.
When she dropped off her boyfriend's her mistress, and when she dropped off her mistress-in-law at her house and was like,
Here you go.
now kiss, and then and then was like, I'm going to the Galapagos.
Yeah, I wonder how that turned out. I
Yeah,
wonder if they were
how are
like
they?
trauma
Where are they
bonded.
now?
Dead.
I know, but did they was it fine?
I don't know. I don't know if it was fine. I would like to know though. I'll see what I can learn. I'll
I'm
go
gonna Google it.
Yeah. I don't even know that dude's name.
Her husband.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't find it.
He probably didn't want to be found and associated with this.
They probably found him and he was like,
nonsense.
never try to come back to me.
Yeah.
Another visitor wrote of Friedrich. Ritter sat in a wooden chair and philosophized with Dora kneeling at his turned-in feet, which is such a mean thing to point out.
No.
His philosophy was a comprehensive cocktail of the strangest ingredients, a curious mixture of foreign words, faded theories, and well-chewed phrases. His ambition
That's
one
another
day...
burn.
Yeah. His
'Cause
ambition
he
one
chewed
day...
everything so much.
Oh!
Because he
That's really
over
good.
masticated.
Intense mastication.
Well chewed phrases.
Oh. His ambition one day was to map the human brain, but so far he had not finished measuring it. And John says of Friedrich's philosophy, Friedrich's treatment of Dora, as described by her, is quite consistent with the behavior expected of an obsessional follower of Nietzsche. After all, contempt for women is a primary tenet of that philosopher's ethic, whose noble man is devoid of sympathy and is ruthless and cruel in the pursuit of the higher culture. And yet, Friedrich seemed anxious to project a public image of a congenial relationship with Dora. She expressed surprise, for example, that he would boast of her achievements to visitors of Friedo, but never uttered a single word of praise when they were alone.
Why do I get the weird sense that she was like a science experiment to him?
Because she probably was.
Like, why do I feel like he, like, I don't know. Like, he was, I mean, obviously he wanted to like keep up appearances out in the world, but like, Why do I feel like the way he treats her is like very systematic?
I think you're correct in that she was kind of a science experiment. He also one time said to another visitor, like, I didn't even want her to come.
Oh,
Like,
no.
she just tagged along.
No. Why do I feel like he's going to harvest her brain?
He won't.
Like, he's like teaching her things to see how big he can make her brain get. And then when
Oh my God.
he's going to like try to map her brain.
Also, at this time, the Baroness had been anonymously submitting stories about herself
Hilarious.
to German newspapers, calling herself the Pirate Queen of the Galapagos.
Love her.
Then and to the point where her story became more popular than Friedrich and Dora's
Yeah,
story.
she's the Dread Pirate Roberts.
She became the influencer.
Mhm.
On May 30th, 1933, the governor of the Galapagos and Nude Ahrens arrived on Floreana in response to the letters sent by Friedrich and Heinz. He met with everyone there, and surprisingly and unsurprisingly, he left having granted the Baroness 4 square miles of land and only 50 acres to the Whitmers and Friedrich and Dora, both. He also invited the Baroness to come stay with him for a few weeks at his home on Chatham Island. The Baroness returned on June 7th with 2 dogs, 10 chickens, a donkey and her foals, and Nude Ahrens, who was going to be her gamekeeper and who quickly became the new favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Lorenz was having a terrible time. Philipson was now mad because he was ousted as the favorite, and he took it out on Lorenz. In January 1934, a drought set in. All the springs basically dried up. The animals were all starving. Lorenz seemed to be the worst off of the group. He started visiting Frito and the Whitmers again, telling them of his bleak plight over at Hacienda Paradiso, where, among other injustices, the Baroness refused to give him food and money with which he could leave the island. She also took all of his personal belongings and locked them up, and he was being beaten by Philipson so badly that they could hear it at the Whitmers' house.
What the fuck?
Yeah. On the 21st, Alan Hancock arrived with a Hollywood professional named Emery Johnson to make good on his promise to make a movie with the Baroness, in which she played a pirate queen.
So he did promise that.
Yeah. She wasn't
I thought
lying
that
about
was like her bullshitting.
No.
I forgot.
No.
Being
He
like,
really
he
promised
said he's
that.
going to make a movie with me. I'd be like, sure, Jan. And then when he showed up with a Hollywood professional,
I don't know what Hollywood professional means in this context because technically I'm a Hollywood
we're
professional.
all Hollywood professionals. It could mean anything.
Really could
You
mean
think it was
anything.
a podcaster?
So the plot was a story that she had written about herself and sent into the German newspapers.
She was the writer. She was a star.
Yeah, it's like the credits are, what's that guy's name? Neil Breen.
Yeah. This is her name over and over again.
The plot is a honeymooning couple are on a cruise in the Galapagos when their ship is sunk in a storm. They and 3 crewmen are able to escape on a lifeboat and end up stranded on Floreana, where they are captured by the Baroness and locked up for 4 days. Then they are taken back to the beach where the husband shoots the 3 crewmen when they try to attack his wife. And then the couple is picked up by a passing ship. And the Baroness was like, this is a true story. After they made the movie, Alan Hancock and the Hollywood professional left Floreana. Lorenz started to spend more and more time at Frito.
There is like archival footage of this, isn't there?
Yes.
Yeah, you can see it.
If you watch the documentary,
Yeah.
Satan Came to Eden, you can see footage from this short film. So Lorenz started writing letters to people off the island asking for help. He wrote to his family. He also wrote to the Baroness's alleged husband, saying that if he helped him get off the island and gave him a job, he would help him get a divorce.
Oh.
Everyone on the island was afraid to help Lorenz too much because they were afraid of the Baroness,
Yeah.
who at this point they were pretty sure was capable of murder
For sure.
because there was this incident where there were a bunch of people in a hunting party and there was like one guy who the Baroness didn't like for some reason, and somebody shot Nude Ahrens. And
Episode title?
and
Somebody shot nude errands.
the theory is that the Baroness was like aiming at this other guy, and Aaron's like got in the way because he like went to shoot something and it shot him instead. And they were like, that bitch will shoot people. Anyway, so on March 19th, Lorenz showed up at the Whitmers looking so terrible that they took him in to protect him. The Baroness came the next day and sweet-talked him into coming back to Hacienda Paradiso, and over the next few days, this cycle continued.
No.
Until on March 27th, the Baroness arrived while Lorenz was out hunting, and she was like, some friends of mine arrived on a yacht, and they're going to take me to Tahiti, and Lorenz has to stay here and look over the Hacienda, which is true. And then when Lorenz returned from hunting, he suspected that the Baroness was actually laying a trap to get him to go back to Hacienda Paradiso with his guard down, where Phillipson would be lying in wait to follow through on his many threats to kill Lorenz. He went anyway. He was there for 2 days, and the Whitmers thought that he was dead until he came back and was like, they're gone. So everyone went over to see for themselves. And according to Margaret, Friedrich opened up all of the stuff in there like he was sure that the Baroness and Phillipson weren't coming back. She also said that Friedrich rushed into writing a formal account of the events surrounding the Baroness and Phillipson's departure, insisting that they were not coming back. Here's Dora's version of events. Noon on March 19th, she and Friedrich were at Frito when they heard what she calls a long-drawn shriek. They did not investigate.
Of course they didn't. Of course they fucking didn't.
Then, on the 21st, Lorenz turned up at Frito, totally different, in good spirits, and he told them that he had broken with the Baroness and had been at the Whitmers for 3 days. And he left saying he'd come back the next Sunday. On the 25th, Dora's birthday, Margaret went to Frito to deliver the news about the Baroness and Phillipson's disappearance. Friedrich says he didn't believe their story. And Dora says Friedrich did draw up a document, and Lorenz was the one saying it was unnecessary. Dora also makes it a point to say that the Baroness's hat and luggage were still at the Hacienda and that everything was very neat and tidy. And most importantly, the Baroness had left behind her copy of a picture of Dorian Gray.
She's never seen without it.
She's never seen without it. It was Chekhov's Dorian Gray
novel.
The drought ended on April 21st. Lorenz was staying with the Whitmers. Even though his situation had improved, Margaret said that he was prone to intense bouts of sadness during which he would cry alone for hours. And she said that he looked like absolute shit. She wrote, he looked ill with fever spots on his cheeks. He had coughing spells that left him spent. In short, a deathly sick man. Mid-July, a man named, his last name is Newgard. I can't pronounce his first name, and I'm not going to try, showed up in his small fishing boat called the Dinamata. He agreed to take Lorenz off the island the next morning. Lorenz bade the inhabitants farewell and promised to return in September. He took Lorenz to Santa Cruz Island. On the way, Lorenz had seen the San Cristobal, which regularly made trips between Chatham Island and Guayaquil. And when they landed on Santa Cruz, Lorenz begged the captain to take him to Chatham Island so he could meet that ship so he could go back to Germany. And the captain was hesitant as it was Friday the 13th and the sea was, quote, heavy, but he eventually gave in after Lorenz offered him some money. So they took a 12-year-old boy from his crew to act as their crewman, and they got on a single-masted motorboat.
You guys, you gotta stop doing this with the children.
There's
you
so
gotta
many
stop
teens.
taking the children and making them like the first mate of everything. Let the children be. Like, why? You need an adult.
I know. I think all the adults are doing other jobs. or also on
Then
the ship.
then you shouldn't be. Then you don't have enough people to
if
run
you
the
can't
ship.
afford to pay your employees a living wage,
Yeah, then you shouldn't have the
then you
business.
shouldn't have a business. So they sailed out on Friday the 13th. A few days later, a fishing boat arrived at Santa Cruz Island, and the remaining crew of the Dinamata was shocked to hear that no boat had arrived at Chatham Island.
Shocked, I say.
They searched for the 3 people for several weeks, and no trace was found. In November 1943, Dora announced her intention to leave the island, saying, quote, "The island has not given me what I hoped." Margaret also reported...
Lost finale tag. Just kidding. I liked Lost.
I love Lost.
Yeah.
Ah, ooh, ooh,
I know.
ooh.
Shambhala.
God, such a good episode.
Three Dog Night. Yeah, I miss that. I miss watching that show when it was airing.
I miss when I hadn't seen it, and then I watched it for the first time
Yeah,
during lockdown.
I remember that.
It like changed my life.
Yeah. I remember being shocked that you hadn't watched it because we love a mystery. And I was like, it's a mystery.
I didn't watch a lot of like nighttime television, like shows that aired weekly
Mhm.
because I had too much shit to do.
Mhm.
We were like a TV on DVDs after the season is done. Screeners family. We were a screeners family. So Margaret writes that at this time, Friedrich told her that Dora was really sick and they were fighting all the time. And Dora regularly told Margaret that she hated Friedrich. Although Dora wrote that despite Friedrich working obsessively on his philosophical nonsense, my words, they, quote, had found perfect harmony and peace together. All differences had been smoothed out, and we had reached the infinite understanding of each other with which no words can tell. Friedrich had become considerate and tender. All storms had ceased. A stillness and a happiness that we had never known before united us in the last month in more than human happiness.
Not a good sign.
No.
That is not a good fucking sign.
The next sentence I
The day
have...
that your abusive husband starts being really fucking nice to you is a day too late.
The next sentence I wrote was, then tragedy stuck at Freedom.
Yeah.
Here's what happened. It's not what you think it's going to be.
I know, it just is not. It's never good.
It's never good. They had potted pork that had gone bad. And instead of getting rid of it, Friedrich fed it to their chickens,
No,
who got sick and died.
obviously.
A few days later, the Whitmers brought a rooster to Frito because, like, they didn't have chickens anymore. And they found Friedrich potting the chickens that had just died
No.
of potted pork poisoning, saying that boiling them would kill the poison.
No.
A few days after that, Dora came running over to the Whitmers yelling that Friedrich had meat poisoning and he was dying.
Yeah.
Dora said that they had opened the potted chicken, realized immediately that it was bad, but Friedrich was like, just boil it again.
No.
So they did, and they ate it, and Dora was immediately sick, but Friedrich got it way worse. And when Margaret arrived with Dora, Friedrich was so bad that his tongue was swollen to the point that he couldn't speak,
No.
and he could only write messages down. Heinz had been out when Dora came, and he arrived at Frito at 5, in time to see, according to Margaret, Friedrich write his last sentence. I curse you with my dying breath.
To who?
And then he looked up at Dora,
Yeah.
his eyes gleaming with hate. And then Margaret sat with Friedrich. He was like out while Dora went to take a rest. When Dora returned at 9, she writes, when Friedrich heard Dora's voice, he sat up, looking like a ghost as he tried to pounce on her. His eyes flashed with a wild, feverish flame. Dora shrieked and drew back in horror. Then he collapsed soundlessly, falling back on the pillows. He had gone. Margaret stayed the night with Dora, who apparently wouldn't stop talking and referred multiple times to a secret between Friedrich and Lorenz. Obviously, Dora's account of Friedrich's final days is very different. This is what the book says. She wrote of their closeness during his last days of the reunion of their souls. She described how he awoke feeling ill. She said that he had a stroke and was paralyzed on the right side. As he lay there immobile, he told me again what he often told me. In reality, I have fulfilled my task on Earth. In the material world, I have built Frito. In the psychical world, I have obtained control of my affections and emotions. In the mental world, I have thought out and written my philosophy. But the task in the religious world, the ultimate reality, the mingling of the ego and the all, that only can be solved by death. As she sat with Friedrich, she read to him some of their favorite passages from Thus Spake Zarathustra.
No.
So, according to Dora, she went to take a rest, and then she returned, and, quote, he was violently twitching. He seized with convulsions. It was the agony of death, but I did not know it. Suddenly, he opened his great blue eyes and stretched his arms toward me. His glance was joyously tranquil, and he seemed actually to say to me, I go, but promise you will not forget what we have lived for.
No.
According to Margaret, Dora did not go to Friedrich's burial.
Yeah.
Then,
This is the woman who was like leaving her husband and was like, actually, everything's great.
mhm.
He took it really well. I'm like, that man punched a hole in the wall.
Yeah,
Like, or at the
Or-
very least was like,
despondent.
yeah.
Because her husband was like not an aggressive man.
Sure.
He was mostly just
was-
like downtrodden.
He was not happy about it.
No.
My point is that I think that she creates her own realities
Mhm.
and then retells the stories
hmm
in her own reality.
Yeah, 100%.
Is it possible that Friedrich thought, because he was an Ubermensch, that he would be fine eating bad meat, but that it was going to make Dora sick because she was already sick and women are inferior?
It's possible. Or
'Cause
did
I
Dora
feel
not
like-
eat it at all?
Yeah, or maybe that.
Did Dora feed it to Friedrich?
But in this version, do you think Dora intentionally fed it to Friedrich, or was Friedrich like, it's fine for us to eat it? And she was like, if he's going to eat it, fine, but I'm not eating it.
I think there.
Like, who do we think was trying to kill who here?
That's the question.
That's my question.
Well, it's interesting because Dora was so delusional about Friedrich
Mhm.
that based on her accounts of their relationship, I can't imagine her trying to kill him, because what reason did she have?
Or was that
However,
intentional? Like, was she so like, I need to get the fuck out of here, that she just like wrote endlessly about how wonderful he was to cover up the fact that at some point she had to pull the trigger to get out?
Yeah. I mean, the book from which all of this comes
Mhm.
was written after she left.
Mm-hmm. So when
So-
she would have had like murder on her hands, if
Yeah.
she, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. When she would have a vested interest in making sure everyone thought that she was having a great time. Because also, the thing that strikes me as odd, if he was like trying to poison her and then got poisoned, I feel like it would be weird for him in his last moments to lash out with hate at her. But like, if she fed him bad food and he was dying and he knew it was her fault, that to me motivates him being like reaching out to like grab her. You know what I mean? Like, he's dying and he's like looking at her with hate and being like, I curse you with my last breath.
hmm
That to me says like he knew that she had something to do with it.
Yeah. I think
Or
she
did
had
he
something
just
to do with
hate
it.
her that much because he just hated women that much?
I think it was both.
a combination.
But then the question is like, how trustworthy of a narrator is Margaret? She's the most trustworthy of the people on the
Yeah.
island, but we don't really know her. We know she doesn't like Dora.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know.
But she's not even in her reading. I didn't get blame for Dora. I just like, got like hate from Friedrich.
Yeah. But she only knows what Dora told her.
She wasn't. Didn't it say that they were there at the end when he was writing out his last words?
Oh, yeah. But regarding who
The
ate
pork
what
or
and
whatever.
why,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We're almost done.
No. I love a mystery.
Then On November 7th, the bodies of Newgarud and
No,
Rudolph
she did it
Lorenz.
because that's why she wrote everything was so peaceful in those last days.
Yeah. I
and
think
we
she did
never
it.
loved each other more than in those last days. And then tragedy struck. That to me says she did it. Because if she'd been
I
like,
think she
we
did
were
it.
fighting and things were rough, and then, you know what I mean? Like, she's obviously covering it up. Like, clearly things were the worst they've ever been.
Yeah,
in
because
those
she
last
also
few
had
days.
been confiding in Margaret,
Yeah.
as I am wont to do.
Yeah. Very suspicious.
Very, very suspicious. So then on November 7th, the bodies of Captain Newgrid and Rudolph Lorenz were found
No.
by the crew of a tuna clipper. The captain of the tuna clipper described the discovery, saying that the ship had landed off Marchena Island, and they had spotted a mast with the remnants of cloth on it. On the shore, they found 2 bodies surrounded by letters. There was a small pile of wood with charred paper beneath it, and the carcass of a seal nearby, as well as several safety razor blades. It appeared the 2 men had died of starvation and thirst and had been dead for several months.
No.
On December 7th, 1934, Dora left Floreana on the Valero 3. On December 20th, they landed in Guayaquil, and Dora stepped off the ship into a sea of reporters, none of whom she spoke to, probably because she was saving her stories for her tell-all.
Mm-hmm.
The Whitmers stayed on Floreana to look after Frido. In the spring of 1935, Heinz suggested that Margaret and Rolf go to Germany for like a little vacation because they had an offer from a Cologne newspaper for a serialized account of their time on Floreana for like a pretty good amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
So Margaret and Rolf went back to Germany in late April. Margaret started publishing her articles and like did a lecture tour. And as soon as she started, her editor was plagued by angry letters from Dora, who was in Berlin and was very unhappy with Margaret's portrayal of her.
Obviously.
Dora was writing her own book, which was published only in London and New York in 1935, called Satan Came to Eden, which Margaret said, quote, caused only a minor stir and was not very successful. Margaret and Rolf returned to Floreana in January of 1936. In April 1937, Margaret had another baby, Ingeborg Florianita Whitmer. On the 31st of May, the Whitmers were joined by new settlers, Don Ezekiel Zarala from Ecuador, who was acting as the governor's agent on the island, his wife Maria, their 16-year-old daughter Marta, and a boy, another teen named Jose, who was working for them. And the governor granted that family proprietorship over Frido. In 1951, Harry Whitmer drowned when his fishing boat capsized. Eventually, Rolf and Ingeborg got married not to each other, to other people. I think
Okay.
Rolf married Marta.
Oh,
And
okay.
Ingeborg married someone named Mario,
Okay.
who I don't know who he is. In the 1960s, 2 more people vanished. An American tourist was lost in 1964. And then in 1968, Ingeborg's husband, Mario, disappeared.
Mario.
In
We barely knew.
we- Alas, poor Mario.
Yeah.
In 1980, the skeleton of the American tourist was found. She died of exposure and exhaustion.
No. Just on the island somewhere?
Yeah. Heinz Whitmer died in 1963. Dora died in Berlin in 1942. And as of the writing of the book, Margaret still lived with the rest of her family on Black Beach and refused to say any more about the events of the Galapagos affair.
Whoa.
And that's the end of the story
That's crazy.
of when Satan came to Eden.
What happened to the Baroness? She just left.
She left and wrote a book.
And her guy didn't die. Nobody murdered him.
Phillipson?
No.
Oh, no, the
Lorenz.
Baroness, we don't. What was I saying? Dora went and wrote a book.
Yeah.
The Baroness, I think, was murdered.
Oh, she was.
I think she was murdered.
By who?
Friedrich and Lorenz.
Oh, because they were like, she's gone.
Yeah.
So weird.
Friedrich was like, they're not coming back. Don't worry about it.
Oh, but when you said that because she was like, oh, I'm going to Tahiti.
Yeah.
That was true. She was going to go to Tahiti? I thought you said that was true.
I think that was true.
That she was planning to go to Tahiti.
Probably.
But
Or
then they
she
were
was
like,
fucking
she
lying.
left. And then Dora went to Hacienda Paradiso and was like, that's so weird. Her hat and luggage and the book she never goes anywhere without are here. It's like the
Yeah.
equivalent of a woman leaving her cell phone in her
Yeah.
purse in her house. Like,
I think that it's probably true that someone came and like wanted to take her to Tahiti because we've seen that before.
mhm.
And then I think
But no one ever heard from her again?
Mm.
But did she leave the island?
we don't know.
I feel like there's a strong possibility she got murdered, and there's also a strong possibility that she just left and didn't come back because she was a literal con artist.
She was like done. Maybe she found a better con on Tahiti.
Yeah. But is that why Lorenz was all weird and sad?
Because she left.
No, because he killed her.
It's possible. Because he also was in good, like Dora said, he was in good spirits when he returned to Frito.
Good spirits like I killed her, or good spirits like she left?
Good spirits, like I'm free of her
Yeah.
in some way.
Mhm. And her guy was Phillipson,
Mhm.
and he went with her?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, I believe that is possible.
I also believe it's possible, but
But whatever happened to them? Like, isn't it weird that we never heard of them ever again?
I
Like, are there
feel
any
like
records of them anywhere?
no. I feel like the Baroness would have written about her time in Tahiti.
Me too.
She would have been like, you will never believe how
Me
much
too.
fun we had.
Yeah. But also, is she a con artist? So she just like, like disappeared into another identity and went somewhere else and was like, I am a baroness of somewhere else now.
Or she was like, fuck the silverware. I'm a countess. I don't know. I think she was murdered.
Suspicious.
Suspicious.
Also, when you were saying that Dora was like, was it Margaret that said that Friedrich said nice things about Dora to them?
I think it was visitors. Like people would go to the island and like write about their accounts of like seeing the toothless man and his sad wife
Mhm.
and like talk to them and like write what they said. And I think it was like those people who reported that he said nice things.
Because now I'm almost wondering, is anything that we know about Friedrich true? Because it all came from Dora's perspective.
Yeah, or Margaret's or Heinz's.
Right. Like, but do we have like I mean, Margaret or Heinz, I would trust in the sense that like, if they were a third party who was like, did they say they were like, oh, we saw how badly he treated her?
Margaret writes about seeing him treat her poorly.
Okay.
But if Dora is like writing about how poorly he treated her,
Mm-hmm.
I believe that. I just don't know if I believe the positive stuff she says about
For
it.
sure. I feel like he must have been treating her like shit and she must have killed him.
I think so.
That
Or
tracks.
she got really fucking lucky.
Because also, once again, just going back to their weird gender roles bullshit, like what are the odds that he had that much to do with the chicken situation? Like she cooked that for him.
But he is the one who told her. Well, we don't know
That's
if
what I'm
that's
saying.
true.
Everything's from her perspective. So how do we know that she didn't just pot some spoiled chicken and then be like, we're
It-
eating this chicken today?
Yeah. Or put something in the chicken.
Because it would be really easy to be like, it would be really easy to be like, he told me to just boil it.
Yeah.
But like, did he?
Because it sounds like something he would do, though.
Yeah, it does. Very suspicious.
It's very suspicious.
Especially with his last breath to be like, I curse you with my last breath.
Yeah.
Why? What other possible reason? Unless he blamed her for him dying.
He probably, I mean, here's the thing.
Would he do either way?
He would blame her.
Even if he was like, it's fine, just boil it, and then he was dying, he would blame her.
And he's like, you didn't boil it right.
But this is why she was probably never tried for murder, because it's believable either way. We just don't know. I'm just saying, like, it adds up.
I think she killed him.
If I were her, like, I
maybe.
could understand. I could understand the justification. I mean, at that point, if I'm living on that fucking island.
Yeah. And he's holding her hostage.
It's like eat or be eaten.
Yeah. Eat chicken or be eat chicken. I don't even think she ate it.
Or be eat chicken. I don't think she ate it either, because I think it was bad.
She probably was like, oh, yeah. Yeah.
Or he just did that, and then she was like, I know enough to know this is not good, and I'm not going to eat it. And he just ate it because he's an idiot. He just
gummed it like an idiot.
And she was like, well, you dug your own grave with that one.
Yeah. I think she did it.
I won't underestimate this man's stupidity.
It's true.
It may have very well have gone down exactly the way she said it did. But I know that it didn't, because she wrote that in the last moments he looked up at her with love in his eyes and whatever. And Margaret said he wrote, I fucking hate you.
Yeah.
Which is like, that tells me she has something to hide.
And she doesn't have Margaret doesn't have a reason to lie.
No.
Mystery solved.
Or was she just so delusional?
Well, that's very possible. Because I'm such a little gullible idiot. My instinct.
Don't talk about my best friend like that.
Your best friend is a gullible idiot. It's fine. That's why we love her. She walks through life with the open eyes of a trusting child.
I do wish that I could trust the child more.
I don't trust children.
I do wish that I could walk through the world with the open, trusting eyes of a child. But yeah, go on.
It's not safe. It's not a good way to live.
But what does it make you feel in your heart?
In my heart, it was that she was just so delusional.
Yeah.
That this was my first impression when I read the book the first time. I was like, this is so sad, because she was so delusional that she couldn't see that he hated her.
Right.
But then I went, nah, he hated her because she killed him.
Interesting.
I think that's my theory. But it is interesting that you say that the book provides a pretty good cover story.
It does, don't you think?
Yeah.
Because it allows her to craft whatever narrative she wants.
Yeah. And he spent all of his time telling reporters how great she was.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want to reveal that he was an abuser.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think she did it.
I don't blame her, but I kind of feel like she did it.
I am confident she did it.
At the very least, she didn't stop it.
She did not do it.
She did not do it.
She definitely let him eat the chicken.
But maybe he was so abusive that maybe he was like
insistent upon it. We can't underestimate this man's stupidity.
Yeah. It's like, do I think, like, which do I believe more? That man was that fucking stupid, or she was that desperate? And I believe both.
It could be both.
I just feel like also if his whole, like, he was trying the whole time to make it look like he wasn't the asshole, it's a pretty big leap in death to be like, I curse you with my final breath, and like sit up grasping for her throat with hatred in your eyes. Like, it kind of blows your cover story. Do you know what I mean? If you're trying to not look like an abusive asshole, unless you really like think that she murdered you. Or you just got the meat sweats and you got confused.
Yeah. Or he really desperately hated her because he didn't act nice to her.
Yeah. I mean, I know he hated her because he was an asshole, but...
And I think they murdered the Baroness.
You think the Friedrichs murdered her?
I think Friedrich and Lorenz did.
Because they said they had a secret.
Because Doris said they had a secret.
Yeah.
And
I buy it.
I don't think Lorenz could have done it himself because he was dying.
And Friedrich hated her too. Or they went to Tahiti. No, I think those men killed her.
Yeah. And Phillipson.
Yeah.
It's possible also that they really were lying in wait for Lorenz.
And they caught them catching them.
Yeah.
they like set a trap for their trap.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Another mystery solved.
We did it. We
Great
solved
story.
it.
I love that
Thank
one.
you. I'm so glad you liked it. I was a little worried because I hate the documentary so much. I was like, this might be a bad.
I think I liked the documentary, but I do remember there being moments where I was like, what's happening?
There's just a lot of people who live on the island now or live on other islands in the Galapagos
Yeah.
telling their
I
stories.
remember.
And I'm like, I love that for you guys, but not here.
Mhm.
Here, I want to hear about the
Yeah.
Baroness disappearing.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's the story of the Galapagos affair.
Yeah, good job.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Or watching.
We don't know.
Stay in your lane.
Buckle the buck up.
Sharp lava smooches.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Oh, I hit myself in the face. Oh, the wide eyes of a child.
The wide, trusting eyes of a child.